What's going on, YouTube? We're going to give everybody a minute here to go ahead and jump on, and then we'll get the show going. Let's get rid of that thing real quick. Oh, man. A little hot coffee this morning is nice. It's the temperature outside. Let's see. It says 77 degrees, but I don't know if it's 77, but it feels nice out. Woo. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing this morning? All right. So, what's going on, Sarah? Good to see you this morning. Thanks for jumping on. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday. Hope everything's coming in real clear. I want to make sure I'm cut this off right here. I think we're good. Hey, Jay, good to see you, man. How you been? Jump into want to kind of get to some of the recruiting class stuff that's going on right now. Ooh. Oh, good. Vodka drinker, you hungover? Man, come on. It's too early. It's too late in the day to be hungover, man. You should be, what's it, 10 o'clock? Man, you should have been up at 8 with ibuprofen, Tylenol, orange juice, coffee, Gatorade. Ain't nobody having a slice of bread. I can't eat bread when I'm hungover, man. The taste of bread and the smell of bacon. As much as I love bacon, man, bacon just tears me up. It's it's pretty rough. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into it here. If you guys have been paying attention to, if you guys have Twitter loaded up with Dog Nation, I'm gonna take an allergy pill. Ugh. Stand by. I got to fix this problem before it ever gets started. I'm already coughing and falling apart at the seams here. A little Zyrtec. All right, so if you guys have been paying attention, if you've got Twitter loaded down, you'll see that Georgia just stole or reclaimed, or however you want to say it, a guy from Florida. Pretty excited about that. Warren Brinson is his name. For those of you who don't know, he's a defensive tackle. 6'4.5", 300 pounds. He's a 4-star. Gracious. Yep, Jay nailed it. I think UJ will actually end up with the #1 class. It's going to be close. It's going to be real hard to take that position away from Clemson. Clemson is absolutely killing it this year. Georgia still got a ton of 5-stars stacked they're looking to pick up. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that our average ranking is really high. And we also got George Pickens is showing up on campus. So I'm really excited about seeing that guy. So if I jump back to the rankings here, yeah. Mine is just allergies, Sarah. I'm sorry to hear you're going through that. Mine is just allergies. With mine, some days it's sinuses, coughing, and all the other stuff, and some days it's not a problem. But I usually take Zyrtec every day, but I forgot it for the past couple of days, so it's kind of catching up to me. All right, so let's jump into it. One of the things I wanted to look at or wanted to talk about with everybody is the rankings that we have now currently. Still got a ways to go, long way to go. It's kind of one of those things where it's way too early in the season to really lock anything down, but it's nice to kind of get updates as you go through. There's been a couple of seasons where I wasn't really paying attention to it, and that's because it was Mark Richt running the team, and I didn't value recruiting as much as I do now, obviously as much as Alabama does. Right, Sarah? Mark Richt didn't really seem to value recruiting as much as maybe he should have, or he couldn't get it done. But then seeing Kirby Smart come over and make the transition to becoming a recruiting-based team, It's very impressive. So I apologize, guys. I sound terrible today. As far as the teams go, if you look at the top, I'm gonna go through the top 10 here real quick. Is what they've got on 24/7 Sports. They've got Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, University of Miami, Notre Dame, believe it or not, Florida, and then blows my mind, but Florida State. Then Ohio State, which I would assume they would be ranked higher, but they only have 9 commits right now, and we'll get into that here in a second. And North Carolina at number 10. Georgia Tech's actually snuck in there at number 12. They just got a bunch of 3 stars. They've got 1 4-star and just 12 3 stars. So they're trying to pick up just any kind of anything they can get. So they got a lot of 3 stars that they're offering scholarships to that normally probably wouldn't get to play Power 5 conference. So those 3 stars are coming over to Georgia Tech, and obviously the coach is hoping that he can build a better team there off those 4 stars or 3 stars, which is the right thing to do, which is the smart thing to do, because that'll give him some leverage in the future to say, hey, we don't run this anymore, but we managed to get this many wins running a real offense. Sarah says Bulldogs, this Bama fan, is excited for your program. Me too, man. Vodka says, I heard someone talking earlier this week about the new XFL will not have an age restriction. If they got the money, they could potentially create one and done football players just like basketball. After getting as excited as I did about the AAF and watching it crash and burn the way it did, it was pretty obvious that by the end of the season, that really wasn't set up properly. It wasn't marketed properly. It wasn't funded properly. It wasn't connected properly. It just wasn't. It had opportunity to be everything in the world it could have been, but it fell flat. It fell literally flat on its face. Some of those players ended up having to pay for their own freaking tickets to fly back home after the games. We have 21 Scrollies available for 2020, 8 5-stars and 13 4-stars would be epic. All right, I don't believe that we're going to pick up 8 5-stars. I think that's ambitious. It would be nice, but I just don't see it happening. We'll obviously take what we can get, but even if we end up with 5 5-stars, that's going to be phenomenal. So let's kind of talk about the teams a little bit. Clemson right now has already reached 17 commits, so has Alabama, and LSU is at 15. So Clemson is just crushing it this year. Clemson is at 11 4-stars and 4 5-stars, and they've only picked up 2 3-stars. And their average is still 94.7. Alabama's sitting at 12 4-stars with only 1 5-stars. They have just as many commits, but they've picked up 4 3-stars, and their average is 92.48. You look at LSU. LSU is doing a really good job, considering that they're recruiting in the SEC West pretty much directly against Alabama. They've managed to pick up 4 4-stars and 2 5-stars with 3 3-stars for an average of 93.36. You might say, Big Dog, why are we talking about the average? Well, the average matters. The reason behind that is because Georgia is sitting at 11 recruits. We're only sitting at 11. But out of that 11, we've got 9 4-stars, 2 5-stars, and 0 3-stars. The only team that has a higher average than Georgia right now is Clemson at 94.77 versus 94.08. And Georgia is about a 0.75 to a 0.8. What's going on, Jermaine? What's going on, Tiger? He's just throwing that 44-16 up, man. So when you're looking at the teams, nose is itchy, guys. So when you're looking at the teams, it's really easy to see that Georgia's recruiting at a level where we're trying to pull in 16 national teams. Here we go. When you're looking at the talent level that Georgia's trying to recruit, Georgia is the only team in the top, I knew it was 20, Georgia is the only team in the. Well, hold on, we're still rolling here. Okay, so that's even more impressive than I thought. Georgia is the only team in the top 50 classes, the top 50 ranking, that has signed no 3-stars. That probably tells you that Georgia is looking for a very top end talent. And to be able to be sitting at number 4, no 3-star sign, only 11 commits, and there's still, if you look out on the board, there's a ton of guys that we're still looking to pick up. I kind of covered that last week. Marshawn Lloyd, does he really sign with Carolina? Yeah, I think he does. But I also think that if he does that, he's going to end up like Benny Snell. And I think he knows that. I think he's going to end up running all over everybody except Georgia. South Carolina does not have an offensive line that can produce the kind of gaps and holes that this guy's looking for. South Carolina does not have an offensive scheme that's capable of getting the most out of this young man. This young man will be a playmaker and a talent. There's no doubt about it. Am I mad that he is looking at or wanting to go to South Carolina or any of that stuff? No, not at all. Georgia's stacked at the running back position. There's just no doubt about that. And so if he was to try to come to Georgia, he basically has to ask himself, does he think he can, does he, number one, does he want to split carries? Because if he goes to play at South Carolina, he's probably not going to split a lot of carries. If he goes to play at Georgia, he's definitely going to split carries. Georgia's offensive scheme has been to run 2 to 3 running backs, split them up, get them all over the field, get them in and out. Typically have one speed and agility guy and one bruiser guy, and then mix the other guys in and out as we see fit. If he doesn't want that, if he wants to be the star of the show, which maybe that's the case, he probably is going to end up at South Carolina. And I'm not mad at him about it. I want South Carolina to be a decent team. I don't want them to be, complete trash. Obviously, I don't want them to be, an Alabama, but at the same time, we need teams in the SEC to be stronger than they are, especially in the East. We need some of those guys to be stronger than we are. I tell people all the time that I want every SEC team to beat the crap out of everybody they play until they play Georgia. And the reason I say that is because it makes Georgia look that much better. And if you're an SEC team or an ACC team or whatever your conference is, that's the way you should be too. Do you know if all the signees have enrolled yet? They have not, Jermaine. Jermaine, everyone except the grad transfers. Jay beat me to it. So it's definitely interesting. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is, why is the chat not staying caught up? One of the things I wanted to point out is University of Kentucky, I think for the first time in probably a decade, has a 5-star recruit. And the Coach Murray or Moran or Moron or whatever you want to call him, he's upset because this kid has committed to University of Kentucky, and he's out here on Instagram. Let me see if I can find it. I'm just going to type in UK coach tweets about 5-star recruit. I can't find it right out of the gate, but it's here. Hold on a second. That's August 8th. That's not recent at all. Anyway, he said, I don't know why other teams have to be doing this. It's, respect the kid's decision or whatever it was he said. It was something along those lines. Welcome to big boy recruiting. If you don't think for one second that next Lattimore maybe, if you don't think for one second, if you got a 5-star player that other schools aren't going to recruit him, then you don't know much about college football. there's Georgia flips players all the time. Alabama flips players all the time. Clemson flips players all the time. I mean, some of these bigger programs, they may look at a recruit and they may see how another school is going to wait. They may even be waiting to see who's going to recruit this guy before they really start their recruiting. There's been several players that were 5-star recruits that Georgia hadn't even talked to, or maybe not talked to in a meaningful manner, and then they get a commitment to another school. And then Georgia rolls in and says, okay, you like Oregon, or you like Michigan, or whoever it is, you like South Carolina, you like Auburn. Okay, let me tell you why Georgia's better than that school. And there's no reason there's no reason not to do it. If these players haven't signed, then a commitment is just words. Players commit and decommit all the time. They jump in the transfer portal. They're all over the place. Wouldn't shed a tear if Auburn went 0-10 if they played the team I pull for. Yeah, I got Auburn. I'm not gonna pull for Auburn no matter what. I mean, even in the bowl games, I don't pull for Auburn. I just don't. Even when Auburn plays Alabama, I don't pull for Auburn. Now, I don't really pull for Alabama, but I don't want Auburn to win. I'm okay. I'm okay with Auburn losing every game they play. It's just the way I am. So, kind of got off topic here. I'm good at that. Do me a favor, guys. Hit the thumbs up button there. It helps the channel and whatnot and all that good stuff. So if you don't mind, please do that. Oh, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share and all that other stuff. I basically hadn't even been asking here lately. A lot of you guys have been doing it anyway, and I really appreciate that. Also, I have a Twitter account, which I'm getting more active with. It's UGA Big Dog Brett. Go over there and jump me out, tweet me, follow me, ask me to follow you, whatever you want to do. I'm cool with that. So one of the things I wanted to jump down here and talk about is the University of Miami under Manny Diaz has managed to get itself to rank number 5. Getting ranked number 5 so far in the season. I mean, look at who they're competing against. Think about it now. Obviously, they got to recruit against the best 3 teams in the nation, which is Georgia, Alabama, and Clemson, and not necessarily in that order. LSU's in the mix. Definitely interesting to see LSU there. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. LSU's in the mix, but then you've got Miami at number 5 with 10 4-stars and 5 3-stars. No 5-stars yet, but I suspect if they keep recruiting like this, they'll have a really good team. They'll be competitive. Probably going to take them a couple years learning Manny's, learning Coach Diaz's new system, whatever system he's going to install. Those players have to learn that. So, I mean, it's kind of like Kirby Smart stepped in, had a great year at 8-5 as a head coach. That's a really good first year. Manny Diaz, I don't see any reason why he can't go 8-5. I could review their schedule. Matter of fact, I'll do that here in a minute. But when you're looking at being able to recruit 10 4-stars, that tells you that there's a lot of talent that wanted to go to the University of Miami that just didn't really want to play for Mark Richt for whatever reason. Then, if you jump down to number 6, you actually see, believe it or not, Notre Dame. They got 8 4-stars and 2 5-stars. Now, the thing that I find interesting is that Notre Dame is higher ranked in recruiting than Ohio State and Michigan, and and Wisconsin. So the teams really that they should be competing against, they're crushing it. I don't know why. I think the couple of trips that they've got destroyed in the national in the national playoffs has something to do with it, but I think their schedule hurts them as far as they don't play a bowl game a championship game, but they're definitely in the mix. I think that Notre Dame, Notre Dame only has 11 commits. So if they just pick up 4 more 4-stars, which they're capable of doing, they could jump to the number 5 spot. Now, they're not going to jump Georgia. They're not going to jump LSU. They're not going to jump Alabama. They're not going to jump Clemson, because all 4 of those teams have 5 stars. Alabama only has 1 5-star recruit. The team that's definitely going to come up eventually is going to be Ohio State. Ohio State has 2 5-stars and only 5 4-stars. They're going to sign a lot more players soon. Or sign, however you want to say it. You're going to see a lot more players from the Ohio State side of the ball on Ohio State's recruiting trail start to come into the mix, and they're going to move up pretty quickly in this ranking. They'll probably end up, if I had to guess, 5 or 6. They're not going to stay around this 9 mark. And after that, it's really mediocre. I would like to point out that Texas is barely beating Tennessee. They're beating Tennessee. Well, Tennessee has 6 commits. Texas had 5. And Tennessee has 4 4-stars. Texas has 4 4-stars. So for Texas to be this almighty super powerhouse that they keep bragging that they are because they got lucky and beat Georgia on a down game, where are y'all at on recruiting? The talent level at Georgia and Alabama is far higher than probably all but maybe 2 other teams throughout the country, and I'll let you guys fist fight over which 2 teams. But I can tell you one of them's not Texas. I'd probably say Georgia has as much talent as Clemson, but I think Clemson has a very good system. Their players fit their system very well. Dabo is a seasoned coach. Obviously, he has more experience in a national playoff situation. And the guy just does a great job of making his players fit his plan, picking the players he needs to fit his plan, regardless of recruiting rankings. So that guy's beastly. I mean, as far as coaching goes, right now he's the only coach that you can legitimately and reasonably say can consistently stand in the arena with Nick Saban and make Nick Saban wonder what's going to happen. Georgia's close, but they're not there yet. Georgia's got some work to do. So let's look at, I want to look at University of Miami's schedule for the 2019 season. So Tiger Ravens' family's divided between Clemson and Georgia. I can see where that would happen in some place. You're moving your dads to Veterans Nurse Home in Alexander City this week. They will put me traveling in Auburn territory a lot. Make sure you wear your tinfoil hat, Sarah, when you go through those areas, because it makes them think you're one of them. They just kind of ignore you. All right, so let's look at Miami's schedule. Wait a minute, this is the wrong season. This is the games they've already played. What is this? Loading up. Hang tight, guys. All right, 2019 looks like they open against Florida. That'll be a pretty good game. I think if Florida can manage to get enough players on the field, they yeah, you're right. That's the first one. They play the Gators first. If they can manage to get enough players on the field, Miami could very well win this game. They should beat North Carolina easily. They should beat North Carolina by 2 touchdowns. Bethune-Cookman, they should beat them by 3. Central Michigan by 3 touchdowns. Virginia Tech, they should win that game maybe by a touchdown. Virginia, they'll win that. Georgia Tech, depending on what's going on with Georgia Tech, I still think Miami will win that. Versus Pitt, that could be a game worth watching. I think Pitt could win that game, but I think it'll be a one-score game one way or the other. I haven't really dug into it, but I think that's the way it's going to go. And then we have the Florida State Criminals, whatever you want to call them. These guys, these fans are the most delusional fans I've ever seen. I mean, they are absolutely incapable of saying our team has work to do. They can't say it. They can't say that their team has a terrible record against any other conference. Any other team they play on a consistent basis. All they can do is point at a dusty case with a national championship from years ago and say, look at our national championship, we won one since you. Listen, college football is very much like sales. It's what have you done for me lately? It's not what have you done 40 years ago. It's not what have you done 5 years ago. It's what have you done last year or the year before last. She's got to stock up on tinfoil. I get mine off Amazon. You get a great price. Clemson 59, Florida State Criminals 10. My point exactly. Tucker Raven, my husband's daughter. Yeah. My daughter, when we lived in South Carolina, she would pull for Clemson because she had friends at school that pulled for Clemson. She likes their mascot, the tiger paw and all that, but she's a dogs fan. She got plenty of dogs gear and all this other stuff. Louisville, however you want to say it. Miami could beat them, depends on who shows up. FIU, which I think right at this particular point in the game, is probably the second or third best team in Florida, and that's because they all suck. And then Duke. I think Duke's actually going to put their basketball players on the field this year. Miami has a legitimate chance of going like 10-2. And then if they end up going 10-2 and they play against Clemson, Clemson's going to absolutely crush them. There's no doubt about that. Clemson's going to beat the brakes off of them, hand them to them, and send them to the parts store. Clemson is just far more talented than the U. They just are. Nothing to worry about there. I do want to jump over and talk about the Criminals real quick. A team, Florida State Seminoles and the Texas Longhorns are beginning to be the teams that are putting themselves on my radar for me to razz the crap out of. And the reason I say that is because Texas fans are all up in arms about how great Texas is, but they haven't done anything in forever. They've lost to some washout teams. It's just, so I'm gonna run through Texas' schedule real quick and kind of give you guys my opinion of what I think they should do this year. And by the way, I think Oklahoma's gonna hand them more than they can stand this year. They start out with Louisiana Tech, cupcake game. They'll probably win that game by a profound amount. This is going to be another game that's going to boost Sam Ehlinger, their quarterback's stats. It's going to make him look really good. And then they're going to play DBU. They're going to play LSU. And I would not be surprised if they run out there and they think that they're going to walk all over LSU, just like Georgia did, and they are going to get their teeth kicked in for two reasons. One, LSU is very, very fast. Now, one of the fastest wide receivers in college football plays for the University of Texas. Can't remember his name, but the guy runs like a 4.2. He's crazy, or 4.32. The guy's crazy fast. But these cornerbacks that play for LSU, they see speed all the time. You're not going to burn these guys up. So I think second week of the season is where you're going to see Texas take an L. And from there, it's pretty much over with. Because they could lose easily 3 games this year in just a regular season. So they play Rice, they'll destroy them. They play Oklahoma State, they're probably going to beat them. West Virginia, they'll probably beat them. Oklahoma, I think they lose. I think Jalen Hurts is a good enough quarterback. He's got enough foot speed. He can move around enough that Texas is not going to be able to stop him. I think that they're gonna control the clock. Now, is Jalen Hurts as good as Kyler Murray? No. Is Jalen Hurts as good as Baker Mayfield? Probably not. But the guy can move on his feet. Tom Herman is he is, absolutely. Kid asked me, what do you think could be a NFL coach on the UGA staff takeaway from... Wait a minute. I'm trying to read it again. Who do you think could be an NFL coach on the UGA staff, not counting Kirby? Sam Pittman, easily. Sam Pittman could absolutely be a UGA coach. That guy's phenomenal. I don't ever want to see him leave, but he could be. Wouldn't surprise me in the next 3 or 4 years if he ends up getting a head coach offer from some school. Oklahoma, when they play Oklahoma, back to that. I don't think Jalen Hurts is necessarily as good as Kyler Murray or as good as Baker Mayfield, but I think he's more than good enough. He's been in a national championship. The guy can play football. Is he going to win the Heisman? Probably not, but he's really, really good. I think when they add that caveat to their system, I think that he's going to do really well, and I think Oklahoma beats Texas. Kansas Jayhawks, they're going to get destroyed. TCU, nah, some years they're good, some years they're not. They're one of those teams that can sneak up on you sometimes. You just never know. Iowa State's another one of those teams that can go either way. They're out of Ames, Iowa. Huge, long tradition of football there. Those guys certainly have an opportunity to sneak up on you. Baylor, one of the worst teams in all of the Big 12. Just no chance of beating the Longhorns. And then Texas Tech. I like Texas Tech, partly because I like their colors. But Texas Tech plays good, hard football. I like watching those guys. Depending on how things go through the season, Texas Tech may have an opportunity to knock off Texas. So you're looking at a team that could go 1, 2, 3. They could lose 4 games. They could lose 4 games in the regular season. It could be 8-4. They could also be 10-2. Do I think they go undefeated? Absolutely not. I don't think there's a snowball's chance that what of them going undefeated. They have some more of that. Where's the Iowa game played? It's played at Iowa. It's played at Ames. Yeah, I want to see Jalen Hurts do well. It's the only quarterback I've ever seen in the history of football go like 24-2, carry his team twice to a national playoff, and lose the starting job. That just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Let me go. Now I want to look at the Florida State Seminoles real quick. Yeah, I mean, I think Jalen Hurts, I'd like to see him do really well there. Do I want him to win a national championship? No, because that means Georgia couldn't win it. Yeah, 26-2. I knew it was a crazy number. If UJ handles business and plays with an edge, watch out. UGA is, I think one of the things that hurt us last year was we didn't have the kind of leadership in the locker room we needed. I think that'll probably develop this year. But I think Texas fans are somebody's probably gonna hand them enough L's to make them sit down. And I can promise you, from all of the razzing that I got from the Texas fans, I can promise you I am going to cover Texas in great detail this year, especially when you lose. You can absolutely count on me making reaction videos to every time you guys lose. Where's it at? Is this it? Good Lord, I had to scroll down like 8 or 9 places. LSU 42, Texas 34. I would probably say LSU 35, Texas 14. I mean, that's probably where I would put it. Oh, there's the boss lady. Our son didn't take the trash out. If Texas makes the playoffs, one of 3 teams will send them back to the Horn State. Unless somehow Notre Dame gets in, and then if they end up playing Notre Dame, then they'll beat the crap out of Notre Dame because everybody does. So let's look at the 2019 Florida State schedule. You've got Florida State versus Boise State. They'll win that game. The ULM Jayhawks, they'll win that game. Virginia Cavaliers, they'll win that game. Louisville Cardinals, they'll probably lose that game. NC Wolfpack, that team's actually better than what you think. They'll lose that game. Clemson Tigers, they'll lose that game. So that's 3 losses already. Wake Forest, toss-up. Syracuse, toss-up. Miami, they'll lose that game. That's 3 or 4 losses there. The Alabama State Hornets, they'll win that game. The Boston College Eagles, they'll win that game. And then they play the Florida Gators. So let's see. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Hell, they might even lose to Syracuse. I'm going to say 4, and then 5 they'll lose to the Florida Gators. So they're going to lose at least 4 or 5 games this season. But yet those guys are over here just blah, 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 blah. We're back. Back from what? Overnight stay at the county jail? Y'all got bailed out again? Good Lord. What if Alabama ends up in a situation like Georgia last season? I don't know. They really don't. The committee has pretty much shown that no matter how good a team you are, if you lose 2 games, they're not willing to put you in. Even over teams that suck, like Notre Dame, who get blown out all the time. Yeah. She should have set that trash in his room and make him take it out. She would, except his room's upstairs. I'll get after him later about the trash. Normally he does that. Even in 17, Bama had just 1 loss. Yep. So Alabama had 1 loss during the regular season where they lost to Auburn. And then Georgia beat Auburn in the SEC championship. And so that put Auburn at 2 losses, Georgia at 1 loss, and Alabama only had 1 loss. So that's what threw them in the mix. And then Georgia played Oklahoma. Georgia beat Oklahoma. I think Alabama played, was it Clemson? I can't remember. Anyway, they beat that team, and then they played us, and then obviously we lost in overtime. So, here's what it is. Yeah. So, we've got some more people that's jumped on, so if you guys would hit that thumbs up for me. Like, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. I don't have Instagram. I can't keep up with all that stuff. I guess I'm just too old and too slow. But here recently, I've been watching Twitter pretty closely, and there's a lot of good information that kind of gets slung around Twitter. So I'm going to start sharing that stuff with you guys. If you want to follow me, that'll probably be an easy way for you to keep up with all that stuff. If you guys are watching the recruiting trail, it's about the only thing that's really going on right now in college football. Let's be clear, Alabama 17 shouldn't have gotten a playoff. Maybe, maybe not. But, I mean, obviously, as a Georgia fan, and I try to be objective. Obviously, I'm a Georgia fan, but I try to be objective. I can't say that Alabama should not have gotten in the playoff if I want to say that Georgia should have gotten in the playoff. I can't do both. You can't. So either I have to say, well, you got to put the best team in, or you have to put a team in with no loss or 2 losses or 1 loss or less or whatever. Now, the way I feel about it is the college football playoff is a step in the right direction. My opinion is we should open it to 8 teams. And before you guys lose your mind, let me explain why. Because then you would be able to take all 5 division champion winners of Power 5 schools. So you'd have an SEC, a Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, and the ACC would all of those teams division champion would be in. So that leaves you with 3, right? So then you take an independent, right? So you got an independent, and then you've got 2 others that you can pick out of the whole ball of wax. If you go back, that would have allowed UCF in the championship and would have allowed probably whoever's in second place in the SEC to come in. Or maybe second place in the Big 12 or Big 10 or whatever. However you want to weigh that in, could have got an Ohio State in or whatever. So if you've got 8 teams, so instead of going 4 teams to 2 teams, you would go 8 teams to 4 teams to 1 team. So really it only adds 1 game for every team that would play. It had 1 game to the whole season. Seeing as how we have that huge gap between when the last game is played in the college football in the division championships, you have that huge gap. It wouldn't be that hard to put another game in that whole mix. And maybe my math is off, but to me that seems to be that would solve a lot of this headache of who should and who shouldn't. Now, I don't really see a way that you could get past 8 teams and add 16 or whatever, but I think 8 teams would probably be the pinnacle of what would be needed in college football to make it completely fair. It's a lot fairer than it used to be. Used to hate that. You were basically in a popularity contest before. as to who was going to be in the national championship program. Excuse me, the national championship game. But now it's a lot more fair than it was, but there's still a little bit of room for improvement. I personally believe if we're not going to do it that way, that if you don't play in some type of championship game, you're not in. You're not going. I think that one more game that everybody else has to play is a dramatic advantage for you. You're not having to risk injury. You're not having to risk a loss. I mean, it's just, to me, an unbelievable advantage, and I don't feel like you should get in. I feel like if Notre Dame shouldn't have got in if UCF didn't get in, and if you don't like that, that's too bad. Which game am I going to this year? I don't know. I really have an opportunity to look it up. We got a lot of stuff going on right now around my house. We're looking at buying another house, so or buying a house in the North Georgia area. So we'll see how all that. Danny Rivers says, Riviera says, everyone should be hitting that thumbs up button because it's big, it's big dog Brett boy. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate that, man. Florida thought they had Warren Brinson. Yeah, Warren Brinson was. I can understand why guys are jumping ship down there. And while I love to rag on Florida, if you're looking at it from a reasonable standpoint, if you've got a ton of talent that's leaving that school is not going to be as predominant as it was. It's not going to be as it's not going to likely win as many games. You're not going to gain any more new 4- and 5-star recruits through the season. It's really it's really a matter of, is this team strong enough to get me the kind of exposure that I want to get? Because if you can be a 5-star running back, and if you have no offensive line, it can be really hard to shine. If you are a 5-star wide receiver, but you got a garbage quarterback, it can be really hard to shine. So I think that's one of those things that those guys, I think it's one of those things that those guys look at, and then they want to make sure that they can play for or play out of school that's going to give them some predominant high visibility playing time. I mean, you're talking about a change from high school to college. A lot of these players that are coming up that are these 4- and 5-star recruits, not only do they want to shine, they want to make sure that there's other players at that school that look that are fitting a role that they want to fill in, that somebody that can teach them, somebody that can coach them that's not a coach. So another player on that team that's a great running back or a great wide receiver, they want that there to help them progress as players. Sarah says the only thing about 8 teams that concerns me is the late season injuries and the elevated risk of more serious injuries. That's always a concern. It's always an issue. But the thing you have to weigh out, at least in my opinion, is if a player, if it's not fair across the board, if all of the teams have the same risk of an injury, if all of the teams have the same risk of a loss, then it's fair because everybody's rolling the same dice. I don't want to see an injury either. I certainly don't. I mean, Georgia's had so many injuries at running back position, it breaks your heart every time you see a guy pull an ACL, but it happens. But it's next man up, and I mean, that's the way college football is. I don't want to see anybody get an injury, but if it's fair, it's fair, and that's really what we're talking about here, at least to me, is I want it to be fair to the teams that get in versus the teams that don't get in. The Texas A&M game scares me. DAGB, I'm guessing you're a Georgia fan. Georgia plays Texas A&M, I want to say pretty late in the season. Let me pull that up real quick. In fairness, 8 teams would resolve conflicts. It would. But I mean, what what can you do, Let me go back to, not FBS. What is this thing doing? We'll pick Georgia 2019 schedule. And by the way, just so you guys know, there's a lot of these schedules that are built all the way out to like 2037 now. There's teams that are already scheduled for 2037. All right, so for those of you that care, I know that there's a lot of Alabama and Clemson fans and whatnot on here. I'm going to go ahead and do a breakdown real quick of the Georgia football schedule because I've done it for a couple of other teams, and then after that, I got to go. I got some stuff I got to take care of today. So Georgia opens against Vandy. Georgia should easily win that game by at least 2 touchdowns. Murray State, same thing there. Arkansas State Red Wolves. You know, these are 3 cupcake games in my opinion. Yes, I get that, you know, Vanderbilt is an SEC team, but they're not they're not they're not worth worrying about. It is a night game, so that's going to be good for Georgia, but it's at Vandy. We tend to do pretty well at nighttime, so we'll see what happens there. By the time we get to September 21st, we're fighting Notre Dame. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish will be playing them in Georgia. I don't think Georgia's ever lost to Notre Dame, at least not in recent memory. So, playing them at North Bend, which we've renamed Sanford Stadium North, they're coming to Sanford Stadium, or Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. So, at Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium, that place is going to be packed with Georgia fans. It was 70% Georgia fans whenever we played them at South Bend. It was so bad to the point that the announcers for their teams, radio shows, and whatnot were telling people to stop selling your tickets to Georgia fans. It was that bad. They couldn't even travel to their own stadium. What makes you think they're going to be able to travel all the way down here to Sanford Stadium? They're just going to get destroyed. Then we have an off week, and we have to get ready for the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee's trying to bounce back. They've got a lot of work to do. They have Georgia's old coach, Jim Chaney. We know exactly what they're going to run. They're going to run the ball every time on first down. They're just going to stop the run every time on first down, and then they're done. Then we play the Gamecocks. Not worried about those guys. Kentucky Wildcats. They don't have Benny Snell anymore. Wasn't worried about them when they did. Then we play Florida. Again, if they have enough players to actually play so they don't have to forfeit the game. Georgia will beat them by 3 touchdowns. Missouri Tigers. They've got an offense that can scare you a little bit when they first start out because they tend to play fast. They almost run this air raid type offense. But Georgia shouldn't be too worried about the Missouri Tigers. That's also at Sanford Stadium. Then we play at Auburn. Not worried about the Gus Bus anymore. And then we have Texas A&M. Now, out of all the teams we've played, I think this is going to be the toughest one. Texas A&M is our SEC West team this year. That team has a lot going on for it. But if you look at Texas' schedule, they have got a brutal schedule. They play Clemson in week 2. They play Alabama week 5. And then they play Georgia. And then right after Georgia, they play LSU. They are playing significantly harder teams than Georgia's playing. Running on recap time. Oh, for those of you that are old enough that watched the Muppets, there was a character called Beaker. And I swear, every time I look at Gus Malzahn, that's exactly what I think. It's possible that by the time that Texas A&M gets to, by the time they get to playing Georgia, they're going to be pretty banged up. This is a brutal schedule. It's obviously one of the toughest in college football this year because they've got to play Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, and LSU all in the same season. Now, let's say that somehow they pull off beating Clemson. Let's say they pull off beating Alabama, and then they get to Georgia. That's going to give Georgia plenty of tape to watch. Georgia's a very talented team. So they could very well lose that game as well. If they lose to Alabama, they're pretty much out of the running for the SEC championship. So whether or not once you get out of the running for an SEC championship, you typically see a team fall off. You typically see a drop off in performance. And it's because they don't have that same motivation, that same drive to go out and try and win a another game. By the time they lose to, if they lose to LSU, if they lose to Clemson, Artie Clay, I'll get you in a second, man. Don't worry. So let's say that this team gets to Clemson. They're going to lose that game. There's no way they're going to win that game, at least in my opinion. Alabama, they're not going to win that game either. I get that they're playing at Texas, but Texas A&M there, but they're not. When they play Georgia, they will be playing Georgia at Stanford Stadium. And then they got to play LSU at night. Well, I think it's going to be at night. It hasn't been announced yet, but I bet it's at night at Death Valley. That's tough, man. That is tough. If they lose those two games, they know they're going to be out of the playing for a national championship. You're going to see them drop off. They're really not going to have a reason to come out there and fight Georgia. Georgia, more likely than not, is still going to have a ton of motivation to get out and fight and play that game. It's just the way I see it. So, I mean, that schedule is tough, but I think that let me jump back here. He wants to talk about Florida. Did I play their schedule? Let me see their schedule. This will be 2019. So Artie says they're returning. Hold on. Let me go. Brett, you're going to lose to Florida. They're not missing any starters or backups. Stop talking about Florida 2021 class and guys that weren't going to see the field and guys that wasn't going to see the field this year. Fair enough, Artie. You're right. You're not missing any starters. You're not missing any backups. And the guys that I'm talking about we're not going to see the field. The guys that I'm talking about some of those guys haven't signed yet. Some of those guys haven't even taken official visits yet. But how much did that help you when you played us last year or the year before? And the answer is it didn't. I think the combined score is somewhere around 78 to 24 or something. So even if you have all of your starters, even if you have all of your backups, even if you have all of the players you had last year, how does that help you beat Georgia? Now, I could see the argument if the games that we played had been close. They were not. They were blowouts. So you're missing all your skilled players. Gone. Do you know who DeAndre Swift is? I would consider that guy a skilled player. We still have Holloman, who's a hell of a receiver. The defensive line is just as the best. The offensive line is as big as it's ever been. The running backs that we have like, I think 3 or 4 4-stars and I think 2 5-star running backs. Not worried about cycling in running backs. It seems like every year we hear the same thing about Georgia lost its running backs, and then we just reload and run over everybody else. So I'm not concerned. I mean, I can go Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. I mean, how far back you want me to go? Says the gate. Seth said, Artie says, not as losing as Florida fans. We won the last 2. All right, quit beating him up. Quit beating him up. He's all right. He's got a right to voice his opinion. Artie, I don't think that anybody is really overlooking Florida. I just don't think anybody is overly concerned about Florida. And I don't see any reason why they should be. And I try to be objective. I do not like Florida. I don't. But it's not the team I hate the most. It's really not. Florida has some talent. There's no doubt. There is no doubt. But when Florida comes out there, and I think the team that they had last year was far, far more talented than the team they have this year, because y'all lost some players. You're not as deep as you were. I don't think that that's going to be able to keep pace with Kirby Smart's team. Who do I hate the most? Auburn. And then it's a toss-up between Texas and Georgia Tech. If Mullen had the 2015 Florida team, then maybe. Does Georgia 2020 class finish in the top 3? Yes. Georgia's hey, look, everybody loves their team, and that's why they brag about it, and that's where all the trash talk came from. If we all just agreed on who the greatest team was, college football would not be as much fun as it is. I love fans that will get on here and defend their team and talk smack And that's all great stuff. But don't be surprised when I do it right back. Just don't. I will tell you, the best fans as far as being magicians go are the Oklahoma Sooner fans. Those guys, when I made that Oklahoma video about Georgia playing them in the Rose Bowl, oh my goodness. There were people commenting left and right and jumping up and down and slinging sand and hollering and Seth, yeah, I'm with you on that, Seth. Yeah, I'm with you, Jay. I did the same thing. But during that Oklahoma game, man, their fans were just talking smack. I said, okay. And we got out there and we played a great game. Now, I'm going to hand it to Georgia and Oklahoma. Both of those teams played better than I thought they would have. To go to triple overtime like that, insane. But then to turn around and their fans just evaporated. When I did the fan reaction video, when I did the follow-up video, their fans were nowhere to be found. Now, if I'd have been an Oklahoma fan, I'd have come back and I was like, yeah, all that smack you talked, y'all didn't do anything but barely win. Of course, I would have said, yeah, but we still won. But you got to admit, when you take a team to triple overtime, yeah, that's a pretty tight game. That's really, really close. It's really two talented teams playing their hearts out. And it's not 14-14. It was in the like 40s and 50s and numbers. I can't remember all that back in this. But my goodness, that was a great game. Yeah, that loss would have been a heartbreaker. Absolutely, Keith. Back when I was watching that game, it was just, I was like, man, we really got to win this game. I talked so much smack. I'm never going to live it down. But their fans absolutely disappeared after that game. So that, their collapse at halftime was legendary. I agree. If you go to a national championship game where Georgia lost in overtime to Alabama, there's no Alabama fan out there that will say that Georgia didn't bring them to the wire. It's impossible to say. You know, one pass decided that entire game. So it was a great game. Clemson crushed Oklahoma. They'll do it again, too. I love Alabama, but I'm mature enough to admit any team is only as good as their next game. That's true. I mean, every team, especially in the SEC, every team is only really about one game away from a season that kind of lets you down. You know, at Georgia, it's an expectation right now to go out and try to compete for a national championship. Same thing with Alabama, same thing with Clemson. Probably the same thing at Oklahoma. And I'm going to go back and pick on Mark Richt a minute. Back whenever Mark Richt was coaching at Georgia, there was a statement he made in a press conference or something that really made me turn the corner on Mark Richt. Now, in the past 3 or 4 years where Mark Richt was the coach, I really lost faith in that guy. It just upset me so much. You could tell there were games that they didn't prepare at all, didn't watch any tape. But then you get to these games that are important, can't win them, getting out coached left and right, just infuriating as a Georgia fan. Well, then he gets up and after the end of the season, he said this. He goes, you know, it's pretty miserable around here if you're not competing for a national championship. And I thought, wow, you seem upset about the fact that people are paying you millions of dollars and expect you to go out and win a national championship. You probably don't need to be here anymore. You know, if wherever you work, I don't care what you do, if you were to look at your boss and go, you know what, it's pretty miserable around here if we're not performing to the standard that you want us to perform to, probably going to be a short tenure of that job. Artie Clay says, newsflash, Georgia's not winning the championship this year. Should lose faith in choke artist Kirby Smart. Hold on a second. I gotta do this. Hey, Caden. Come here, son. Say hi.
Hi.
Guess who I saw come outside this morning?
Who?
Well, you call her mom. Guess what she was doing?
Hmm.
Guess.
Yeah, trash.
Yeah. She probably wasn't too happy about that, was she? So, all right, son. I love you. Don't forget about the other stuff you're supposed to take care of, please. And thank you.
I did take care of that.
Awesome. So anyway, Florida has better coaching. Artie, all right, now you're pushing it, man. How does Florida have better coaching? Dan Mullen, man, you're asking for it. You are asking for it. All right, since you asked for it, Dan Mullen is terrible. Okay, all right, there's more than just Georgia fans in my chat feed. I want an Alabama fan or a Clemson fan to say that they think Dan Mullen is a better coach than Kirby Smart. I'll wait. Will any Clemson fan or any Alabama fan or any fan of any other team say that Dan Mullen is a better coach than Kirby Smart? I'm going to wait a minute. I don't see anybody in there. You just have 5 stars. Well, Artie, stands to reason that if you guys have a better coach, he could recruit better and y'all have more 5 stars. Here's an FSU fan that says they would take Kirby Smart over to Hunchback at Gainesville. Listen, it's okay to have faith in your team, but it's not okay to call Georgia fans delusional whenever you say only Georgia fans say that Dan Mullen is that Kirby Smart's a better coach. How many college football playoff appearances does Dan Mullen have? None. How many 5 stars did he recruit this year? None. The only thing that I can say Dan Mullen is better at than Kirby Smart is trolling himself out of players so far. Whenever he says that Florida's trying to be like Georgia, in no way, shape, form, or fashion is Georgia trying to be like Florida at all. Georgia has higher expectations than I think than Florida. He can't even make it to the SEC championship game. He can't get past Georgia. Never mind Alabama. Never mind Clemson. If Georgia's such a choke artist team, then why can't you get by them? If your coach is better than our coach, then you explain to me how. And you can't blame it on just 5 stars, because you can stack 11 5 stars out there in that field, and if they don't know how to run the schemes, they don't know how to run the plays, they haven't done the homework, then they're going to get mollywopped. I'm sorry. Talent only takes you so far. Look at Benny Snell. Benny Snell carried that entire team until he played a good coach, and then he got mollywopped. I mean, that's just the way it's going to go. There's only one team that Georgia has lost to back to back since Kirby Smart started. And that's Alabama. That's it. And there's almost no other team in the country that can say, except for Clemson, that can say they think that they can beat Alabama consistently or beat them at all. VWT says we will whip Florida and they will come with every excuse in the world. It's okay to be a fan, and it's okay to cheer your team on, and it's okay to say that you think that your coach is better, and that's fine. But sometimes you just got to face the facts. As much as I hate it, I have to say that Nick Saban is a better coach than Georgia. It's Kirby Smart. He's just better. As much as I hate it, I have to say that Dabo Swinney is a better coach than Kirby Smart. Artie's like, yeah, he's like, I'm done with this. He goes, we'll wait till the game. Fair enough, Artie. I'm okay with that. Is it possible? Is it possible that Florida beats Georgia? Yes, anything is possible. But I don't know anybody except Florida fans that are willing to bet on that game being Florida winning that game. Last time Clemson lost the ACC championship was 2009 against Georgia Tech. Wait a minute, y'all lost against the triple option? Damn, well, the claps when the airplane lands. Hey, Prince, don't. I clap when the airplane lands too. I hate flying; scares me to death. Thank you, Jesus. Get this fat ride back on the ground. It's going to be an interesting season. There's going to be a ton more stuff come up. And Artie, since you're a diehard fan, and I'm glad that you are. Thank you for jumping on my channel. I do appreciate it. That's not sarcastic. That is the truth. Thank you for getting on here. Thank you for defending your team. Thank you for defending your coach. What I'm going to do though is, and I'm cool with that, Artie. I really do appreciate it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video, not trash talking the team. I'm going to do a video of returning players, their stats, who the best players are for Florida, just for Artie. If you guys want to tune in, that's fine. I'll do it this week. I'll upload it. I don't know when I'll get time to, but I'll upload it then. And then you guys can see what he's talking about. Because I think if it's fair, if we're going to sit here and trash talk him and trash talk, you know, his team, I think it's fair that we talk about the team and we talk about what they have there. Maybe he'll change my mind. I doubt it, but I think it's only fair to look into it. He squat. Kid said he squats to pee. Oh, y'all be easy on Artie, man. You gotta respect the guy for jumping in here and standing up for his team. He's probably the only Gators fan in the feed, and for a guy to do that, hey, thumbs up to you, man. That's my kind of fan. He's like, I'll fight all of you. I'll fight you all. I love my team. Yeah. I wish more teams had fans like him. You know, the guys that don't disappear. Oh man. Well, guys, it's been about an hour. I got some stuff I got to get knocked out today. Seems to be a little bit. Here's the thing: I'm not a Gator fan. You're not a Gator fan? What? What's your team, Artie? Help me out here, man. That surprised me. Do you have a team? Man, he suckered me right into that. That was impressive. Are you not going to tell us? Florida doesn't have anything to suggest. An Auburn fan. No wonder you're talking about Florida. Whew. That's why he's razzing us, man. Because I was talking about the million dollar man over there. Beaker. I guess now I got to do an Auburn video and a Florida video. Oh, maybe I'll combine them. Whew. So Artie, are you guys ready to buy him out of that contract, or do you guys want to keep him? I'm not trolling. I'm asking honestly. You guys want to keep him or not? You want to buy him out? Okay, then I know you're not completely delusional. Who would you guys want to see replace him? Who do you guys think you could get? Who would you want? I don't know how Auburn's going to do this year. I mean, I can see him going like, 9-3 or something. They might even be able to do 10. Art Briles. I'll look that up and I'll get into that too. So I'm going to jump off, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, thumbs up, all that other stuff. It's wonderful. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. God bless. Go Dogs.